All right, Texans back at it. Lovie Smith back at it as well. I'm trying to make sense of some of the stuff that Lovie Smith has said, specifically on Brandon Cooks, and specifically on just some of the stuff and the ways in which he goes about saying things. I think it's safe to say, and I want to preface this by saying that I think Lovie Smith is good for this situation, and I thought he was good for this situation. I think he's been a good face. I don't think his job's easy. I understand that there are personnel limitations. There are problems and sins of the past with the organization that make his job much more difficult. However, I will also say that before the Texans brought in Lovie Smith, there was serious concern that maybe when it came to adjusting to the current style of offensive football, specifically in college, where they're a lot more revolutionary, they're a lot more open-minded, that maybe the game had passed him by, and that his style of defense just didn't seem to work as much in the NFL. So I want to say that as well, because there was no other NFL team, I think, that was going to hire Lovie Smith as their defensive coordinator, and there damn sure wasn't anyone that was going to hire their NFL coach. So with all that said, I understand both sides of it, and I understand that the job isn't easy. But some of the stuff that Lovie Smith has said recently, just it really doesn't make a lot of sense. The Brandon Cooks stuff, again, he's in a tough spot. But, let's just focus on what's going on the game. Let's focus on the positives. He likes to moderate and tell people what matters and what doesn't. And he keeps saying he wants to focus on what's going on the field. If you want to do that, I don't know that it's going to be very favorable to Lovie Smith. I think the culture in the gray area is actually more favorable to Lovie Smith, because the reality of the situation is the last 2 years, the Texans have had one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Now, I could sit there and I could say it's because of personnel in this front seven, and I think that would be factually correct. But I also have reasonable concern as to whether or not Lovie Smith can coach these guys up. I keep hearing about, the Chicago defense and, what they did then. I mean, look at the personnel that they had there. Look at the job that the defense did in Tampa Bay. Look at the job that the defense did in Illinois, and look at the job that it's done with the Texans. Maybe when Lovie Smith gets better players, he coaches them up. I don't specifically love the way in which Derek Stingley's being used. And I would like to see him in a lot more man. Again, though, when you can't get after the quarterback, maybe it's not there. So there is kind of like there's like two sides to the story, and I just want to make sure that I'm very clear that I respect both sides to that story. I respect that Lovie's job is hard to do, and I respect that maybe, the cause for concern that we had with Lovie Smith, maybe those still exist. But when he goes up there and says stuff like this, I really just kind of wonder, like, who Lovie Smith is talking to and what exactly he means when he says stuff like this. This was Lovie Smith today at his press conference, this was yesterday, actually, at his media availability. And this was him talking about the task ahead and his thoughts on Giants quarterback Daniel Jones, who the Texans will be facing on Sunday.
We have a big game against the Giants coming up. It's kind of simple as that. They play good football this year, starting with how their quarterback has played. Daniel Jones has played. First off, he's a lot better athlete than he's given credit for. Everybody assume he's just a stand in the pocket thrower. Yeah, he can make all the throws, but I think he's been really effective.
What?
This year, starting with how their quarterback has played. Daniel Jones has played. First off, he's a lot better athlete than he's given credit for. Everybody assume he's just a stand in the pocket thrower. Yeah, he can make all.
Who assumes that? Who assumes that Daniel Jones is a stand in the pocket passer? The guy's been in the league 4 years. If anything, his mobility has been talked about as his strength. It's his arm talent that's been questioned. Who thinks this? Maybe Lovie Smith is hanging around, different people than me. But in all honesty, who thinks that? Like, is there anyone? I don't know anyone that thinks that. So what is he talking about? Talking about because he's tall and stiff looking? What is Lovie Smith talking about there? Everybody assumes that. Nobody assumes that. He's been in the league 4 years. Oh, he's been back in the NFL longer than Lovie Smith. This is Lovie Smith's second. You were losing games at Illinois when Daniel Jones came in here. We've seen him run. What did he get up to, like 22 miles per hour on that one run? Who assumes that? Like, what is he even talking about there? Then this is where the Lovie Smith, this is where you talk to people in Chicago where, maybe they say that Lovie's act kind of wears thin. This was DJ Bieniemy, and DJ's just simply asking, Coach, we understand that there's personnel limitations. We understand, that the defense hasn't gotten better, but what exactly do you do to improve the defense? Here's Lovie Smith, and this is where he really, really rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And again, I understand there's frustration, but goodness gracious, Coach, come on. You don't need to mansplain to DJ Bieniemy about football. He's asking a very simple football question. There's nothing pointed, and what are we doing here, Coach?
Your defense has been good in some categories, whether it's takeaways, pressures, things like that. Obviously, the run defense has been an issue. Obviously, you guys have better rush defense. Defense be better. So, what do you feel that you guys have to do to be able to fix that glaring hole in the defense?
It's just not one thing, I can tell you. I know you asked me pointed questions on do this, fix that. That's just not how the world works.
It's not how the world works.
Defense works.
Thanks,
not
Coach.
how football works.
Thanks
this is
for
what
the philosophy.
We do. If there's an issue, there's been an issue, we constantly practice it. We changed personnel. Believe it or not, we change up ways to actually practice, try to get it better. Sometimes it just takes more time. Things don't happen overnight. So that's what I'm going to say. We're going to go to practice, and we're not picking, combing our hair or something.
You don't have
in practice. We're freaking practicing, trying to get better with that. I understand about our run defense and stuff, and eventually it will get better.
When?
Right now, when you ask those questions and stuff, and a whole lot I can do, there's not a whole lot I can say except for coaching-wise, we have to coach.
He might have slipped up there and said there's not a whole lot I can do, which I would understand. Like with this front seven, it's very difficult. But this mansplaining and stuff, like what are we doing?
A whole lot better. Player-wise, we have to play better. That's the only answer I can give you.
No kidding, B.O.B.
After reviewing.
What? I mean, just there are context clues at this point to where, first of all, I think there's possibility that the Texans might have the perfect guy for the job to solidify the most important thing, which is the number one pick in the draft. And all they got to do at this point is lose. If the draft were today, they would have the number one pick in the draft. Lovie Smith might be the perfect coach for that, because when Lovie Smith tells people to focus on what goes on the field, I decided I would. Here's Lovie Smith's head coaching record in the NFL. He is 90-93-1. He's 81-63 at Chicago, 8-24 at Tampa Bay, 1-6-1 with Houston. He's had 5 winning seasons in his entire time coaching. His total head coaching record, 107, 132, and 1. He was 17-39 at Illinois. So when you talk about gunning for that number one spot, Lovie might actually be the right guy for the gig. But when you say stuff like Daniel Jones, everybody assumes that he's not mobile. His 4th year in the league. I'm pretty sure that's not the case. And of course, no one expects Lovie Smith to, turn around this defense overnight. Hell, I don't know if Bill Belichick could turn around this defense with what they are right now. He'd coach him up better than Lovie Smith, but there is kind of a gray area. But when you say stuff like DJ's just trying to ask how you do. And I think in fairness to Lovie, there's maybe not a lot he can do. Brown Chubby Bear says, in all reality, there's nothing he can do to improve the defense until we change the personnel. He's getting frustrated with the media. That's fine. I don't mind him getting frustrated, but I will also say this. This isn't quite a firing squad of media that he's facing here. Like, this is a very patient, understanding media that he's going in front of. So, yeah, I understand why he's getting frustrated, and I do understand. Like, again, I understand that there's probably not a lot that he could do, but I also don't know if he's a guy that's going to maximize personnel. Like, did he really maximize what they had in Chicago? I feel like Chicago just had a very, very well put together defense. He definitely didn't maximize what they had in Illinois. Brett Bielema's gone there, done a pretty damn good job. Maybe he's just a better college coach. Did he maximize what they did in Tampa Bay? I don't know. But that's the middle ground. That's the gray area that you always have to talk about when you're talking about these situations. And I also think if we would just want like some tangible proof, because it's easy to say, well, personnel. It's easy to say, you like the way Derek Stingley's being used? I mean, Lovie Smith was pretty testy and pretty offended when you were when you would ask, does this guy fit into your system? It kind of feels like they're trying to have Stingley do what a lot of people thought that wouldn't have been wasn't in the best interest of him as a player. I mean, how many times have you seen Lovie Smith just draw something up and say, that was a really great, defensive scheme? You can chalk it up partly to personnel, but do you feel like Lovie Smith would max out the personnel? I don't know. When you say stupid stuff like people assume that Daniel Jones isn't mobile, I wonder, like, maybe I'm putting too much into it, but I kind of wonder what the hell you're thinking and who you're talking to, because I've yet to find one person, and every damn thing I say is criticized for 4 hours on a daily basis in the loop, Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, Odyssey app, Sports Radio 610, everything. I've yet to find one person who thought Daniel Jones was maybe not mobile. One. Not one. So what is he saying? What is he talking about? Who knows? Hopefully he just keeps losing and the Texans get that number 1 pick, because that's also a lesson I think that we can learn from Indianapolis. You keep hearing about Frank Reich. You keep hearing about Ballard. It's all about the quarterback. If Andrew Luck doesn't retire in his prime, Indianapolis is having no problems right now. We might be talking about a team that's won another Super Bowl. I mean, they looked pretty good when they beat the Texans when Andrew came back. Take it a step further, Jim Irsay goes up there and he's tooting his own horn for their winning percentage since 2000. And I know, like, it's an eye roll, and it should be, because, I mean, let's be honest, what Peyton Manning and what Andrew Luck did, who gives a shit? Who really cares? But even if we are going to take those stats at face value, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think that they have the winning percentage that he hangs his hat on? Again, fair or not, let's just take it for what it is and say, oh, that's an awesome accomplishment, just for the sake of this discussion. Why do you think that is? It's because they had Peyton Manning and they had Andrew Luck. That's it. Andrew Luck retires, all of a sudden you're chasing your tail. So it's all about the quarterback. And hopefully for the Texans' sake, and I know it's hard for a lot of people to root against them, and I understand. It's not fun to lose. If one of these guys can be the franchise-changing quarterback, that changes a lot of stuff. And quite frankly, If losing is what's in the best interest of the Texans, we already acknowledged that they got personnel limitations, and maybe we should start at least considering that they got the right coach to lose football games, because there's a large sample size that he knows a thing or two about losing football games at multiple destinations. And hopefully, if he wants to win, hopefully he figures out, or whoever he's talking to figures out, that Daniel Jones is not some big white stiff. Figgy hit me with the RC on that one. Juan said, case in point, cap and cap. Look at the Giants. They got Saquon, a star left tackle, and some pieces on defense, and look at them now. So I believe coaching really brings out personnel. Yeah, I mean, it can become a chicken or egg argument. Again, there's no right answer, especially when you inherit as much of a disaster as the Texans are. So I don't think there's like one answer, but I do think it's possible that it's both coaching and personnel. And I think there's a very, very large body of work that we're working off of with Lovie Smith at this point, to where I don't think it's completely unfair to wonder what we wondered really when he was hired. To wonder if, maybe it's not one or the other. Maybe it's both. If you could choose, would you take Young, Stroud in this draft, or wait for Ewers, Caleb Williams? I would take Bryce Young if we're picking a quarterback here. I don't know that Quinn is ready. Quinn Ewers is an NFL guy, and I don't know what Caleb Williams is going to be either. So I'm a Bryce Young guy. I think Bryce Young's great. I think the arrogance. I was talking about this today on the show. I think the biggest mistake that Nick Saban made is, and I think I don't know that you can do this in the NFL anymore, but I think you have a better chance of doing it in the NFL than you do at college, especially with the caliber of players and the caliber of coaches Nick Saban's going against. I think it was a very arrogant, stupid move to think that you could just hire Bill O'Brien and be fine. At least if you're trying to reach the standard that Alabama has already reached, because coaches are ballsy in college, and coaches are really smart. I don't want to say that they're more innovative, but they're willing to risk it a lot more than teams are in the NFL. And you can find yourself in a situation where you just put Bill O'Brien out there, and more times than not, Alabama's going to be able to win. But in situations like this, where Brian Kelly's coaching guys up, where you're getting everyone's best effort, I think it was a really arrogant decision to let Bill O'Brien call plays. And I think they're just kind of they're suffering the consequences of it right now. And I actually think Bryce Young might be building some character. But if you ask me, I would go with Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Cap still going. Indy fans finally get to see how hard it is to build a winning roster. Yes, they do. And they had a very good roster, quarterback excluded. And now we're going to see what happens. I think there's something more to this Jeff Saturday thing. I almost wonder if Jeff Saturday's there to become like eventually a front office guy. And if in a strange way, like Chris Ballard's replacement is kind of in the building or the first step to his replacement. Because I don't think Chris Ballard's safe. And I damn sure don't. Someone could tell me different. I've talked to a few people in Indianapolis, haven't directly asked them this question. It's more so just been like, what the F are you guys doing out there? But I don't think it was Frank Reich's decision to bench Matt Ryan and give up on Matt Ryan as soon as they did. I think that was Irsay's first decision. And as soon as Frank Reich and Chris Ballard realized that, Jim Irsay was going to step in and do this, I think they realized that they were walking ducks. And that's why Frank Reich's gone. Could be wrong. That's just how I look at it. I don't think either one of them wanted to do this. And I love Sam. I got a lot of love for Sam, but come on. It's not like you gave it to, someone that's going to be a future quality NFL quarterback. Who knows? Crazy times. Lovie Smith, scouting report, Daniel Jones. He's kind of fast. So He's not a white stiff. You're not going against Tom Savage this weekend. You're not going against Brandon Whedon. You're not going against Drew Bledsoe, Ryan Mallett. Daniel Jones can move. So hopefully you figure that out. Well, maybe hopefully not, because we want some losses. We want the Lions to beat the Bears too. So there we go. Subscribe to the channel. Fire up the Odyssey app. Appreciate y'all as always. We're back in Texans mode. The Astros parade over. Dusty Baker back, by the way. James Click, I think he's going to be back as well. And we'll keep this going. At Landry Locker on Twitter, at Landry Locker on Instagram. Going to be doing these throughout the week. A couple months in now. We're like a couple hundred away from 1,000. That was the goal before the season. And then the draft, it's going to be a full swing. And it'll keep getting better. And no matter what, always remember, no matter how clueless Lovie Smith comes across when he gives scouting reports or straw mans or clueless comments, no matter how many losses or wins there are, we're in this together. Have a good night.